Welcome to the Ecocide Law Alliance webinar. My name is Merja Metel Suomalainen, and I'm a senior advisor and a partner at Comma, an advisory firm specializing in reputation management. I will be moderating this webinar where you have the opportunity to dive in with questions in a little while. For the next 40 minutes, we will give you an introduction to law against ecocide and why business leaders are coming out in support of it, business leaders like you. Joining us today is Eva Karlsson, who has been in the apparel industry for sportswear for over 30 years and who is CEO of Houdini Sportswear, a company that keeps winning sustainability awards and is operating on a global market. Welcome.
Thank you.
And from Ecocide Law Alliance, we have Jonas Ropé, who is co-founder of Ecocide Law Alliance and who has been head of strategy and business intelligence at Ericsson. And he is now a corporate advisor and recently back from Brussels. Welcome.
Thank you.
And taking questions in the chat is Jon Bäcklund and My Skylt from Ecocide Law Alliance. Eva and Jonas, I have some questions for you first, so we all get a thorough grounding on today's topics, and then we will open up for questions from the chat. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Jonas, what is Ecocide Law and what will it do?
Thank you, Maria. So ecocide, to start with, comes from two words. Eco, from the Greek word for home, as in our shared home, the planet, or the ecosystems to sustain us. And side, you recognize from genocide, for instance. It means destruction or destroying or killing. So ecocide, the term means really large-scale destruction of the living natural world. An ecocide law, it's not a new idea. It was drafted when the Rome Statute was formed in the mid-90s and taken out under mysterious circumstances. So today the Rome Statute, which is residing in the International Criminal Court, has only 4 crimes against peace. So that is the crime of aggression, crimes against humanity, genocide.
What do you mean by mysterious circumstances?
Yes, so it was prepared. Thank you. It was prepared and scrutinized, ecocide to be the 5th crime. And 5 countries had it removed, and that was 1995, so the public didn't know about it. And those countries happened to have big oil industries, and some were into nuclear testing. But the reasons were never made public either. So some countries went forward, put it into their national legislations, but today it is an active law during wartime, but not during peacetime. So what happened about 10 years ago, the UK barrister Polly Higgins, who unfortunately died 2 years ago, aged 50, but she did a marvelous job crafting a definition of ecocide and advocating that and proposing it for the UN, and really made a huge campaign. And when I met her, I could say 15 years, I had spent 15 years to find something that would change the system of the global economy. And this beautiful idea does that. So ecocide law, as she crafted it, and her definition is based on size, duration, and impact. So it has to be huge and in size, several square kilometers. It has to be severe, and it has to be over a long period of time.
How long period of time?
Yeah, over a few seasons. And now we have an expert panel headed by, there's two chairs, but Philip Sands is one of them, professor in law. So there's an international expert committee or a panel of experts that will propose something that heads of state can vote to be amended as the 5th crime against peace during peacetime. We don't know exactly what they will propose, but we know they have Polly Higgins' draft as a base.
And you call it a global umbrella law.
Yes. So when you put a crime in the Rome Statute, which is one of the most powerful documents in the world, It is above all other laws. So international trade agreements, the laws that govern corporations, national laws for all the countries that have signed the Rome Statute, um, it will have an effect. But also, as we are so tied into each other today with global trade, with businesses that span continents, and with us working also for different in different places, it will be in fact a global law with a timetable. So and it what we also talk about, and it's important to know when it comes to the law, is it's heads of state that vote. The first time they can vote is November 2022, and we have a unique period of time where we, for the first time, can have crimes against the living fabric that sustain us as an international crime, regulated by criminal law. So it could it could put those that are in superior responsibility in trial.
So it will be a busy year and a half.
Yes, yes, it is.
So this is good news for every business leaders who wants to make a difference and take responsibility.
Yes, yes, it is, and it's really good news for for everyone. We're all victims of a system that has flaws, where destroying um, the conditions for life isn't a crime, and it's possible to make big damage and have costs for weaker and for others, and then compete unfairly. So it's not only for those for businesses. It is really um, a system change enabler that is good news for everyone.
So if they vote next year, when could the law be in effect?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So we don't really know. The best guess is about 5 years, 5, 6 years from now, it could be in effect. We have seen other amendments. They could take 7 years. We have quite a big pressure on this law to take in effect. So it is really guesswork, but it will not come into legal force directly. It will be a period of perhaps 5 years.
Are you excited really here today launching this platform for companies?
Yes, thanks. I am. I'm really excited. I'm excited about the law. It brings hope. There's so many people that are really in despair about the future. It's an opportunity, that is really rare in humanity, that we change in this way how we act on the planet. And and we have had many campaigns. We have Stop Ecocide International, for instance, in the UK, and we have End Ecocide in Sweden. And many have been operating targeting individuals stepping up and parliamentarians. There's an alliance for parliamentarians. But up until now, after 10 years of campaigning, this is the first time we have a platform with business perspective on it.
Eva, why do you think ecocide law is a great idea?
Well, you mentioned already that it's international, and of course, most companies today work on they have a global supply chain or value chain and global distribution. We do, and we're as an SME company, so ranging from small to large. That is how we operate today as a business, and in that sense, I think that national legislation is something that is a threat or is seen as a threat by many companies, while this is international, so it becomes a level playing field. And I would say a baseline. I mean, there's so much more we can improve from that, but to have a common understanding of the baseline or the foundation for our work, whether we operate from Sweden or operate from India or elsewhere, we have a common understanding of the legal aspects of what is appropriate and legal and good.
But you need a law to have a common foundation.
Yes, exactly. I do believe that we have to have much stronger regulations, and this is, of course, a fantastic regulation in the sense that it stands above all national laws and makes a common platform for all of us to work.
And your perspective is your industry. How would it change your industry?
Well, I think, business thrives when there's a long-term and, of course, also international framework to work on, because that way we can invest with commitment and speed, because we know that our investments will have an effect, a positive effect on our operations and the long-term, business profits and so forth. So in that sense, it will change. I think it will foster a systems perspective where we start understanding or making sure that we take the time to understand the implications of our entire operations, meaning everything in the value chain. So the precautionary principle will become also a way to make sure that we are in line with this law. So I think the systems perspective, just having that wider horizon of our operations and our impact on ecosystems elsewhere, and then the precautionary principle, understanding that a new technology, a new value chain, we have to understand the effects on the ecosystem before we implement it. And that makes sense, common sense, of course. We should have done that a long time ago, but we all know that the state of the planet today is partly because of business way of acting, where we don't have the precautionary principle and we don't have the systems perspective that we should have. So I think it's fantastic and really important to implement now.
And today you're reaching out to researchers and business leaders and members of parliament. We know all those are viewers today. And I was thinking about just last week, Mats Ramström, Atlas Copco's CEO, he discussed 4 global trends that his company has seen. And one of them is the need to reduce environmental impact. And he said, either you see it as a threat and become a loser, or you focus on it and see the possibilities, which we do. That's one reaction from a big industry and company.
It's really interesting.
And you heard Houdini Sportswear here today, head of sustainability, a leader in sustainability. What kind of response are you receiving from other types of companies?
Yes. First, I'd like to say that I'm so delighted that you're here, Eva. That since you came several years ago and said, when are you launching a platform? So Houdini is wholeheartedly with you on this idea, and many other companies will. At that time, I thought it was a matter for heads of state, since it's they who vote. But I realized I was wrong, and the businesses needs to step up for the heads of state to be brave enough. And I've been surprised, I must say, for the support this idea got. So one very revealing example is one of the world's largest mines wants Ecocide law. They're based in China. They have several 100,000 employees. And they say that without Ecocide law, if they invest in green tech, which already exist, and they will go out of business because of the prices, and their employees will be out of jobs and their families will starve. And they will achieve nothing because the operation will move to India, to another country, or will be restarted a few years later. With Ecocide law, they will have to invest in green tech, which they would want to, and all their competitors too, on the global scene. So you wouldn't have the migration of job opportunities and investments and environmental destruction, which you have as you are into with national legislation. Another example, which is also very revealing, I think, is Valérie Cabanes, who's this fabulous lawyer in France, who had a talk about Ecocide for 1,000 business leaders. And at the end of the talk, they stood up, all of them gave her standing ovations, because we're all trapped in a system which is deeply flawed, and we're all victims. Also, the CEOs in industry, around the planet and across industries.
But can you see any problems with a law like this?
Yeah, you could say that. I would say the problem is we have built a society and an economic system our institutions, our educations, the legal frameworks based on the idea that the natural resources are limitless and that nature will repair whatever damage we do. And it's wrong. So we have countries like Ecuador or Brazil dependent on ecocidal activities. We have other countries dependent or have, with the mindset of dependence at least, for imports of really destructive raw materials, which we don't measure even. We don't measure the amount of gold, the resources we destroy when we import a kilo of gold, for instance, which is 1,000,000 times more than the kilo of gold. We only measure the import of that kilo of gold. So it's kind of also invisible. But the law, Ecocide law, in the Rome Statute, is a beautiful solution because in Ecuador they are forced, as they feel now, to allow big tailing dams and mining for oil in natural reserves under horrible circumstances because of the amortizations. With Ecocide law, it would put the bankers, the importers, also the heads of state on the same side of the table. So just as we cannot demand for someone to pay back a loan, that they would enslave their population or they would kill parts of their population to be able to pay the loan. With Ecocide law, we cannot demand that they would destroy their natural habitats either. So it shifts, and it's not like we don't have the solutions. There are so many action plans for a regenerative shift. For Ecuador, for Brazil, there are hundreds and thousands of pages of good action plans, but the law is missing. We cannot um, uh, replace that with documents. And also looking at, for instance, Europe, which is in many ways a green leader. Europe destroys 95% of the materials the first time we use them for whatever product we have, a house or a car or so. 95% we destroy. So we have an improvement factor of 20 times. So if it would be half as wasteful, that would be a massive change. And then looking at how much overconsumption we are having. In Europe, it's about 3 times. We're in Stockholm now, it's 4 times, a little bit more than 4 times over regenerative levels. So if we would double the care we have with the natural resources we import or extract, we would be within regenerative levels. But the system and the pricing doesn't accommodate for it now.
We
So,
want to give hope today also.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And we have the
But
solutions.
exactly, I would say that that is the most important thing for legal or for politicians who are going to implement this or hopefully vote for it.
Mm.
We do have the solutions.
Yes,
We have to implement them.
yes.
But being a company and taking the first step, worrying that all the competitors won't do it, and having then an advantage in cost and margins and so forth, that we can get rid of that
Mm.
problem.
Yes, yes.
Eva, do you think that a law like this will have effect even before it's fully in force?
Yes, I do believe so because I also look at the potential for a cultural shift in the sense that we have the systems perspective, which is knowledge and making sure that you have the insights. And then we have the precautionary principle, but then we also have the mindset. I mean, genocide, it's a given for everyone today. Ecocide could be the same within years, a given. Why would we be proud of profits that are made at the expense of ecosystems? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Uh, so I think it's just a matter of us gaining that perspective, individuals, collectives, organizations, companies, and realizing that we can do better. And raising that bar and raising the ambition also means that we will achieve much more. I think in that sense, corporations have a huge opportunity. We know that with a very, I can take ourselves as an example, a very, very narrow framework, like, for instance, our circular principles for designing products. It doesn't limit us. It creates, it's an environment where innovation thrives. and a designer thrives. So we find new solutions, we find new opportunities as well. So it's not only doing less damage, but actually evolving to a much smarter way of doing business. So I think the cultural shift is just as important, and that will come earlier for sure.
Perhaps I could just remembered Ellen MacArthur, who has this fantastic Ellen MacArthur Foundation, on circular economy. I heard she told me in a seminar that she was meeting a designer, a young designer, in design school, who was a bit depressed because everything had been designed, and then he heard about circular economy, and then she met him a year later, and he was over the moon because everything needs to be redesigned.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah,
It's our most powerful tool
yeah.
in that sense.
And we see now during the pandemic that we can make a change fast.
Yes,
So,
yes.
mm.
Yeah,
we
the
can.
momentum is now, and we're at the crossroads. And if we don't take the right direction now, I don't, I don't know if we ever will. So now is the time.
Yeah, I guess the key question is how do you change the mindset of 1 million people or 1 billion people at the same time in a coordinated way?
That is the question. How do you do it?
Yeah, and I think Ecocide law is the answer.
And today you're asking business leaders to promote this.
Yes, yeah.
How?
We are launching this Ecocide Law Alliance platform for businesses, also for other organizations, but we start primarily for businesses. And we will compile research about circular economy related to ecocide law on artificial intelligence, which also will be a boost, can be a boost for planet positive solutions, and many other things. And it's also um, accelerating the ecocide idea. And it can be hard to keep abreast. So we will also help that. So if you are in business, you have a platform which accommodates your perspectives. And we also launched a platform to have an enrolled support for the idea, because as I were into, if a head of state shall be brave, of course, the voice of business is important. Um, and we want the voices of business for all sectors and on all continents to support this idea. So that's why we have the platform.
And Eva, you're one of the voices for businesses. What can business leaders do? What can you do to promote this?
Well, I think that gaining knowledge and then not being as worried, just gaining knowledge and become aware of the opportunities. And we were talking about the timeline. It's of course nothing that happens overnight. So companies will have time to prepare. So understanding that, it becomes less of a threat and more of an opportunity. And then we can inspire and inform our colleagues in the businesses that we meet in all kinds of um, trade shows or panels or whatever. And then we can also make sure that we give our policymakers some I guess a feeling of that it's not a threat if they go ahead financially for a nation. I realize that there's worries among business leaders and there are worries among policymakers, but knowledge and collaboration and dialogue is the way forward. And then I think that we will be ready for a time when there's a vote.
Yes. Yes, and perhaps to complement, or it's not only to get ecocide law into the Rome Statute, we need to have a law with teeth,
Yes.
because if no one is prosecuted or no one can be prosecuted because of the law is so weak, it will not have an impact on the system. So it has to have teeth if you disregard this. Then it would be like any of all these other treaties. So it has to have teeth, and that is also something the voice of business could help to protect.
What can the Alliance do for business, and what can business do to support Ecocide law and the Alliance?
Yeah, so keep tuned to us and get in contact with us if you need more information. It would be lovely with more business leaders like Houdin and Eva.
I'm sure there are quite a few though. I'm the only one here today, but
Yeah, you're not the only one.
no.
No.
We
How
know we
far?
have viewers from different companies, so it's great. Eva, before we take questions from the chat, what is your message to business leaders?
I think there's no time to waste. I mean, our employees want this shift. We can see that there's an eagerness for a designer to work with something meaningful, and that we can see that happening in all age groups among employees. And then we have customers. They are also expecting much more of companies. So I think it's really a time where there's much more opportunity than anything else. So get in touch, um, keep updated, and make sure to reach out if there's anything you're worrying about.
You can follow the Alliance on LinkedIn also.
Yes, LinkedIn and on ecocidelawalliance.org. We are, yes.
Okay, thank you, Eva and Jonas, for your perspectives and your passion. And now let's turn to the viewers and see if we have any questions in the chat. And we do. Hello, my name is Sarah. Thank you for a very interesting seminar. I run a textile company. My question is, how will this law impact the work in a board within the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes. Okay. So that is simple. It won't. It won't impact uh, the board. Not in that time frame. What will or is likely to happen is that shifts of investments will start to shift. And if you happen to be one of the few companies, I would say that have activities that can be ecocidal, then you should start a review process of that. And remember, ecocide, we will know exactly first when we have the definition from the legal team, how they define it. And we will have a seminar about that 2 days after. So they will launch it the 21st of June, and the 23rd of June we will have the first seminar, and then many more. But with all likelihood, it's only for the worst crimes. So it starts from the top with the absolutely worst crimes of ecocide. Um, so the effects for companies is very little in that time frame.
Okay.
But like you say, preparatory work
Yes.
to really get to review the supply chain. I know the textile industry has a quite complex value chain, so to prepare and make sure that you know all the details in terms of natural resources used and so forth. That is a very good way to get ready.
How long is the time frame? Sometimes you talk about that the fashion industry or the apparel industry, it goes very fast. You have seasons, and yeah, the fashion goes fast. But in your industry, how is the circle for change?
Yes, it moves very fast, and that's I think an opportunity as well to slow down in some ways and be smarter in how we use our time. Because I mean, to move from one resource to the next, or from one value chain to the next, without looking into these issues, I mean, you can actually um, move your negative impact from one area to the next, or even increase your negative impact without knowing it. So. Like we said, all the solutions are there. So it's just a matter of taking a little more time to get into the details and the regions and the qualitative aspects of a value chain, and then you can get into a circular or regenerative practices, or at least reduce your impact quite radically.
We have another question here. My name is Eric. I may have missed it, but did you say when you expect this law to come into force?
Yes. So My best guesstimate is about 5 years, 5, 6 years from now. It's really difficult to know before. It could be a little bit more, not likely to be less, but a little bit more. And it depends on a lot of things. If there will be a vote next year in November, or if it will be delayed for some reason, and then what happens in the process. But it is, you could say, a positive bureaucratic procedure. So it follows a mechanism that is really sturdy, and it is not like climate negotiations. Every head of state have one vote, and you need 2/3 of majority in the signature states to advance it to the next stage. And then, yeah, so my guess would be around 2029 that we could have it in force.
How will ecocidal activities that already have permits and that are critical for, say, defense or healthcare be handled when the law enters into force? A question from David.
That's a good question, David. So that will, of course, be the case. And so if you have activities that are ecocidal already, then they will be no, illegal when it enters into force. So those needs to be stopped. But I think for most, they have a risk to be ecocidal. So like the Event Horizon for the big oil company that went bad. So with the law, extra measures would need to be taken so that it will not be a big catastrophe. And now we will see more when the definition is enforced. But the way Polly Higgins defined it, it is the fact when you can prove that it has been ecocidal consequences, then it's a crime. Doesn't matter the way she defined it, if you had an intent or not, if you did something or not. If it happened, it was a crime, and then the question is who was responsible for it, who was in supreme responsibility for this and should have known. So we will see. But so the quick answer to David, your question is, if it has risks of being ecocidal, those needs to be safeguarded so that won't happen. So that would incur most likely more costs or more thoughts to avoid.
Can you see that there will be problems to decide who was in charge when
Uh,
it happened a while ago?
yes, it will be problematic. Yes, and it would be impossible if you need to prove the intent, as I believe in wartime you would need to prove the intent. It's really difficult, but yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they define it.
What alternatives exist to ecocide law? My name is Martin and I work in management consulting.
Okay, Martin. So there's a short and almost a short answer to that. So the short answer is there is no alternative. When there is missing law, only law can fill the void. So you cannot. So if you have a lack of rules, international rules, you cannot fix that with national legislation or regional legislation. That will tend to migrate the problem to somewhere else, and maybe worse even. But that is an alternative that is explored. There is a beautiful initiative from France and with the UN called Global Pact for the Environment, where they also, which is true, conclude that there is a lack of principles and there's a lack of transparency and there's a lack of international care for the living system. But a pact that is voluntary isn't replacing a law. There is voluntary standards, which is also beautiful for the mining industry, but that isn't used for some of the biggest and worst mines on the planet, since they're voluntary. But that's an alternative that's been tried, and we have had since the Stockholm Conference 1972 thousands of voluntary schemes and negotiations, and meanwhile we've killed half of the living world, so they haven't worked. So the short answer again is there is no alternative to a global law.
And we have 5 more minutes, so you can send in more questions in the chat. And we have one more here. My name is Emma. I saw that you both, Eva and Jonas, are engaged in circular economy. Will ecocide law in any way expedite the shift to a circular or regenerative economy as you see it? Eva, you first.
I think that transition is already ongoing, but I think it will be accelerated for sure. Just like many other transitions that we are seeing the early stages of, that will accelerate thanks to ecocide law. Um, yeah, I guess that's the most important thing, that it's going to accelerate because there's a momentum already. And I assume we talked about this years ago, but the momentum for all these moves towards legislation and transitions and investing in new sustainable technologies, it's moving faster and faster now. I think there's potential for exponential change in mind shift. So I guess that helps us with Ecocide gaining momentum right now.
Mm.
That's a good picture.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I think that's the big thing, the shift in mindset that will occur.
I think circular, just like so many other things, linear practices have been so common that we don't even question them. But it really doesn't make sense to use extract resources, use them for a short period of time, and then end up only with waste, where we can keep those resources in use. So I don't know how we got here, but there's for sure a way out of it. I don't believe that ecocide law is a silver bullet where nothing else is needed, but I truly believe that it's the foundation that we need on the legal side because it's international and long term. And then we have building blocks like the ones that you can select on your own and that are not maybe legal, but initiatives that you can join and building blocks to evolve from where we are today.
We could say we ended up here because companies want profit.
Yes, and there's nothing that says that ecocide law would restrict or prevent companies from having a profit. That's not the case. But we can build profits without doing that at the expense of others, be it ecosystems or people. That's a given. We just need to embrace that. It's a little work, but it's much more rewarding that way.
Mm. Yeah. No, I agree.
Hi, my name is Andrew. I wonder, there has been very few convictions for genocide. Why would it be different for ecocide?
Yes, that's a good point. So, um, so the short answer, I think, if I can do that short, is we are bound together with international trade, with operations from companies, sometimes regions, but usually through companies that span countries and continents. And also when it comes to executives in banks and in these operations, that is not the case for genocide. You could hide basically in your own country, perpetrating genocide and then not stepping foot in any of the the countries that have signed the Rome Treaty. So, but it has been convictions. But since we're so bound together, that will make it very difficult to operate with ecocidal activities and not be under threat of being seized. And also when it comes to the crimes against peace, there has been great advancements, and through the universal jurisdiction, convictions are also done, which isn't perhaps in the public knowledge. So it's more powerful than you might think, but many experts that I've been speaking with is that saying that ecocide, makes use of the Rome Statute and the International Criminal Court the way it was thought of from the beginning, whereas these other four crimes are extra difficult for ICC to handle.
The conference on biodiversity has been delayed to October this year in China. What do you think should be the priority for focus at the event? From Charles Ross.
Oh. Do you have an answer on that?
No, I think it should be broader than Ecocide for sure, but to have Ecocide as a part of that dialogue would be really good. But I don't think that they should stay only with the legal. There's a lot of science and collaboration on preservation issues and so forth that is important as well.
We have a question
But
from
the global perspective also on those issues, of course, is really important.
We have a question from Joel Lundberg. You mentioned several organizations working on raising support for ecocide law. How are the organizations working together? I've heard resistance to this, that the ICC is underfunded and will not be able to act on this law. What needs to be done to ensure that the law can be used effectively?
That's a very good question, Joel. Yeah, so it has struggles. ICC, it does, for several reasons, and I brought that question actually with me when I went to The Hague, 2 years ago. I heard it in Sweden also that will it be weaker even with ecocide law? And the response I got from the experts there is absolutely not. It will strengthen ICC, it will make it more relevant, and that is also the message I keep getting from those that work with prosecutions within the ICC and with being experts on the field. And it has also to do with that the law fits quite well with how ICC was done. Yeah.
We have time for one or two more questions. Rutsena is asking, can this law be invoked right now?
No, I think that would be a bad idea.
Why?
We would need a transition time, and people would need to hear about it before it enters into legal effect. So I think that would be chaotic to have it directly. And I don't think it can either, because the procedures are such that it needs to be voted, ratified, and processed before it can go in. And you wouldn't want to have a law that you don't know how to interpret either. So it needs to be coordinated. Also, there's a beauty to have a coordinated time schedule across the world, allowing everyone to be a hero.
Yes, the end goal is not to convict
No,
companies or governments,
no.
but rather to shift the way of operating so that we just follow the ecocide law collectively
Yes.
and individually.
Our time is up, but there are more questions coming in, and you can feed them in, and then we can take them on the next seminar, maybe,
Yes.
or get answers in another way. And the next webinar will focus on the proposed text of the law and the implications of it. So you can join us on June 23rd at 5 p.m. Central European Time, June 23rd, right?
Yes. Yes. Welcome.
So thank you for joining us today and sending questions and giving answers. Thank you, Eva Karlsson, CEO of Houdini Sportswear, and Jonas Ropé, corporate advisor and co-founder of Ecocide Law Alliance. And if you, as a business leader, if you want to get in touch, or you'll find more information about Ecocide Law and Ecocide Law Alliance on ecocidelawalliance.org and on LinkedIn, as you said. Thank you, and have a nice Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks.